Hello friends, today is the 5th Sunday of the month. Do you know what that means? It means I'm collabing with some friends. This is my 5th Sunday Collab with Friends challenge. I picked 2 friends from YouTube and I send them a box and we all have the same, ingredients, supplies, and we see how we create differently with them. I think it's fun. I think it's a blast. I think you guys like it too. You can let me know in the comments below, but I really think you guys like it. And so stay tuned to see who's showing up this month. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on in the video, but let's get crafting. These are the ingredients, or rather the supplies, that I included in the box that I sent to C and Brenda. This little tin galvanized bird from Dollar Tree. I included this hollow wooden box I thrifted. I had several of them, so I sent each one of them one of these. I also sent some, guess what? Chiffon ribbon, some little mini spindles off of a Jenny Lynn changing table, some little laser cut crosses from Dollar Tree, and this repurposed sign. I had several of them that were donated to me, and I just sanded them down, and we're going to create something beautiful with them today. So I had this little 3-inch wood piece in my stash. I'm pretty sure it probably came from Joann's, and then I have this repurposed little spindle top that looks like it came off of maybe a bedpost. And I'm going to attach all these pieces together and make something really pretty. Just wait till you see the end result. I'm going to take you along and show you how we got there. I'm going to take vintage linen and I'm going to add just a little bit of sandy blonde into it. These are DIY paints. And I'm going to create this beautiful color that I'm going to use on 2 projects in this video. This is just a little bit of a very, very light khaki. Now, I'm going to take this IOD transfer booklet called Lover of Flowers. It is beautiful, and I haven't used very many out of it, so I just thumbed through here and found some beautiful flowers that I wanted to use on this box. Now, I painted this popsicle stick, and I dried it up, and then I put it up next to the florals to see which ones I felt like matched the best. And then I'm showing you here that I used it's not really picking up on camera, but I'm using my paintbrush to make brush strokes. In this particular time, I want brush strokes because I want to have a little bit of texture on this little spindle, this little finial. I'm not going to call it a spindle, it's a finial. And then I took some of my spindles that I had in my stash and I cut 4 of them down. We're going to use those as feet. Now I'm going to take vintage linen by itself, and I'm going to dry brush all over it just to, give it some dimension, lighten it up a little bit, give it some character. Now, when I do it on this finial, it goes over those brush strokes and really brings out that texture, and I absolutely love how it looks. It doesn't really pick up good on camera, but it turns out really good. And I did all 4 of the little feet and all of the pieces. The big block also got it. All of it. You can see it a little bit on the block. The camera's picking it up a little bit, but I did all of these with the vintage linen, dry brushed it, pretty heavy dry brush. Now I'm going to put a T on this because that's going to be my top. I don't want to put a transfer on that. Now I just chose the florals that I liked, and I'm going to just put the transfers on here. Now pay attention because I'm not going to show you how I do all the transfers. You want to be careful not to touch the beautiful part of the transfer when you're putting it down because it will stick to your fingers. Now you just place it where you want it. The little tool that's provided in the package, you just press firmly down all over the entire piece and then gently lift the carrier sheet up. I like to make that little wave in there and do what they call ride the wave. See that little bubble I have in there? And just press. And then if for some reason some of it doesn't come up, you just press it a little bit more with your stick, just like I'm doing right there, and just push and push and push, and voila. Now I had a little tiny piece of that petal that did not come up. no problem. You just lay it down on there, right where it goes, and rub it down, and it comes up. Now, with the side that the transfer was on, we're going to rub really gently but nicely all over it to burnish it so that, oh, this is a different one. I was like, what am I doing? This is another side. I'm not going to show you all of the steps because it would be very redundant because I'm going to use a lot of transfers in this video today. I'm going to put the little words that came with it that say what kind of flower they are on a couple sides. And then I did not show you the third side, which was absolutely the most beautiful side, and I did words on that came with it on top of the floral, but you will see it shortly. I'm going to take the clear wax. I'm using the Dixie Belle wax on this one, and there's that side I did the words on top of the flower. I think it turned out so pretty. That's going to be the front, in my opinion. There's really not a front or a back, but I only did 3 sides because I feel like this piece will have a back to it. Okay, now I have these little legs, but I already waxed the bottom, and if you know anything about wax, the glue will not adhere. So I took my little finger sander, and underneath where all 4 of these little feet will sit, I went ahead and sanded so the glue will stick. I'm going to use Titebond Quick and Thick and a little bit of hot glue, and I'm going to glue these down. I have a bit of an ironic story about this project because I already had it semi in the making. It was already planned because I was going to participate in a challenge where we were going to draw names and make an item for someone whose name we drew and send it to them and make a video. And we were going to put it on our YouTube channel. And I had actually drawn Brenda's name, and that never came to fruition. So Brenda, this was going to be your project if you remember that challenge that we were going to do. Now I have this little tool. I don't remember what it's called, but it is amazing. It's not sharp, but boy, you can poke a hole into a piece of wood, and it helps when you're going to drill a hole. It keeps your drill bit from dancing around, and so it will drill the hole exactly where you want it. I love that little tool. It was very inexpensive. I'm pretty sure I have it linked in my Amazon storefront that's in my description box in this video. Okay, so I'm just going to use this little skewer, and if you've watched any of my videos at all, you know this is my method for keeping things from falling apart. Now I had a little bit of sawdust. I just went over to my scroll saw, got a little sawdust, and I'm just going to use that sort of as wood filler because that hole that was already in that finial was a little bit larger, but I didn't want to make another bigger hole in the bottom, and I didn't have a skewer the right size, so I just made it work. Now you see what I'm doing there. We're just going to glue that down. That's going to be super secure. Now we're going to glue this on top, and for some reason I was smart enough not to wax the top. So go me. So we're going to use our Titebond Quick and Thick, a good healthy amount of it, and maybe just a little bit more for good measure. And then we're going to put a big glob of hot glue right in the center. That hot glue is going to hold it quickly while our Titebond dries. Now the Titebond does dry quickly, but you see, I want to go ahead and wax it right now because I'm impatient. So I need it to go ahead and set up quickly, and that hot glue is going to provide that quick hold. Now, you know I'm going to use my chiffon ribbon. I cannot wait to see what my friends did with their chiffon ribbon that I sent them. But I'm just going to wrap mine right around this little finial, and of course it's not staying where I want it, so I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue to coerce it to stay where I want it. So I'm going to wrap it around there, just tie a little knot, make it look like a little bow, and then this little cross, I'm just going to tie it right up close to the top because I think it's going to look really cute just dangling from that little piece of ribbon. And then this DIY is finished. This month, I invited 2 very special ladies to come and craft with me. C from CeeJDiy and Brenda from Monner's Market. These 2 ladies make beautiful projects. They've been really good friends to me in the YouTube world, and I want you to go and check out their channels. Their videos will be listed in the description box below, so please be sure and check them out when you're finished watching this video. Now, let's use this sign. I'm going to take all of this hardware off the back, the string, the hangers, the tags, and everything, because we are going to make a tray. So let's take all of this stuff off, the hangers, and get that sticky tag off of there. And then the front I've already sanded, and we're going to use that same color paint that we used on the first project. Now I'm going to sponge it on. I'm doing 2 coats because I want that texture. I love texture. Now I'm going to just use that big sponge dauber, and I'm just going to sponge all over until I get as much as I want on there. I did not add any additive to that paint. I'm just sponging it on and just giving it a little bit of texture. And 2 coats was enough to get the coverage that I needed. I did that on the back as well. Now I'm going to use vintage linen and a chippy brush, and we are going to dry brush just like we did on the first project. The camera might pick it up a little bit better. On this project, I'm not sure if you can see it good enough or not. It's not a huge difference, but it's just enough to give it a little bit of dimension and texture and character. Now I have these 2 beautiful little vintage pulls. You know how I know they're vintage? Because they have flathead screws. And I want to mix some paint to match them. So I got some Fancy Farm Girl and Sandy Blonde, and I just knew that was going to be perfect. But it wasn't quite dark enough. So I added a little bit of weathered wood to it, and it came out perfect. Look at that. Would you just look at that? So I dried it on this, I painted this craft stick, and I dried it to make sure that it was the right color that I wanted, and I love it. So I'm going to just barely, dry brush around the edges. I don't want a whole lot of this color on there, but I just want it right around the edges, and then I'm going to dry it with my heat gun really, really good, and I'm going to take my little finger sander with a very fine grit sandpaper on there. Wow, did you just hear that thunder? Apparently we're having some really bad storms tonight. Okay, so I'm going to use another one of these transfers from the IOD Lover of Flowers, and this was one big sheet, and I'm just going to put this whole big sheet on here. Now I'm not going to bore you with the redundancy of showing you how to do the transfers. They are very easy to use. You just rub, pull up, rub, pull up. If it doesn't go down, you just keep rubbing until you get all of it down. See, there was one little word that didn't get on there. You just lay it back down and rub it on, and voila, it's beautiful. Be sure you burnish it down. It gets rid of all the little stickies, and it makes sure that everything's adhered nicely. Then I'm going to take the clear wax, and I'm going to wax the entire piece, front and back. And then we are going to attach these beautiful pulls. I, off camera, drilled some holes that lined up with the pulls, and then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to use our flathead screwdriver and put the flathead screws into there and tighten them down very tightly. This thing is not going anywhere. But I did not want those screws to scratch up my coffee table because I'm putting this piece on my coffee table. I'm keeping this one for myself. So I have these felt pads that I got this in a set that I put the felt, the little felt pads that go on the bottom of your chair so they don't scratch your floor up. Well, this whole big square pad was in there. I'm just showing you how sticky it is. And I'm going to stick this over those screw heads so that it doesn't scratch up my coffee table. And this beautiful little tray is complete. Now let's use this little tin bird. I've had these in my stash for a while. I used to go to Dollar Tree, and if you bought one, you might as well buy 5, so I had those in my stash. Now I have this old fencing, and I just love it. I love that knot hole, but that one you could see was really hanging on by a thread, but I just love, love, love that. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over to the back, on the back side, and I had these pieces of an paint stir stick that I had cut off, and we're going to make use of them. We're going to put them on the back as stabilizers. Now I'm using Gravel Road by DIY Paint. I get all my DIY paints from Sammy over at unicorndustdesigns.com. So if you're interested in any IOD products or DIY paints or thrifted items, she has a beautiful website, so go check her out. And I just dry brushed it with some weathered wood, just to, so you know, it doesn't really match the wood, but it looks like it was intended to be on there. So now I'm going to get out my heavy duty staple gun. This one has 1/2-inch staples in it, and I'm just going to staple these down, and it's going to hold it nice and secure. And I put a bunch of staples in there because I don't want this thing falling apart. I also am keeping this for myself because when I got finished with this, I was in love with it. This may or may not be my favorite one for today. I'm not sure why. Oh, that one didn't go all the way in, so I tried to pull it out, and the staple broke, so I just hammered it in. Okay, here we go. Watch this. Push it down. When I raise it up, the staples fall out, and the whole thing just fell apart on me. So I had to take time out, fix it, and continue on. So now this thing is sturdy, and it is so cute. Now let's work on this little bird. Little birdie. It is so wonky. But I took Prom Queen by DIY, which is a beautiful dusty powder blue. And again, I'm going to use that dauber and sponge, and dab this blue on there. And I did 2 coats. I let one dry really good. I just do want to warn you that if you use a heat gun, that metal heats up. Ask me how I know. It gets hot. Yep, I touched it. Anyway, it's hot. Okay, so now it's all done, and I'm going to use that Gravel Road, that gray again, and a little fan brush, and I'm going to dry brush over the top parts that are raised because I thought that would just give it, you know, it would make it pop a little bit. It didn't give it as much color as I wanted because DIY paints dry lighter, so I went ahead and took just the dark wax that was left in my brush from my previous use and rubbed it around the edge and then just rubbed it over it a little bit. And then I'm going to take some sandpaper. I don't really think this step was necessary, but I did it anyway. I didn't know it wasn't necessary until after hindsight. Okay, but anyway, I scuffed it up a little bit because we're going to use the Iron Patina paint by Dixie Belle and that whole system that you know I love to get that rusty, crusty look. But I really believe that I could have just done this on top of the paint because I end up going over the part that I sanded and getting it on the paint. And then there's some places that I just went ahead right there. See right there? I didn't sand and I did it and it turned out great. So I'm gonna just put it where I think it should have natural rust or just wherever I want it. And then, yeah, I guess I'm showing you. Okay, so the second time, that was the second coat. So you get to let it dry and then put a second coat on. Now this is I believe this is the green. It doesn't make sense. The green turns rust and the blue turns green. But anyway, I'm going to use a Q-tip instead of spraying it. I'm going to use a Q-tip to apply it just to the rusted parts. And I'm putting quite a bit of that liquid on there. And then once I've gotten that, and I covered the entire part that I painted. And then once I did that, I sprayed the blue, which is the green patina, which doesn't make sense. I know, but I didn't create it. And I'm just dabbing it in a few little places. I'm not putting it on the whole thing. And then I'm going to get that heat gun, And it helps to kind of move those paints around and make it not look, it makes it look a little more organic. And so I'm just going to keep drying it till it's dry. When it's completely dry, I took it outside and sprayed it with that fixative to seal it. And then I'm taking an old piece of sheet music. This was a coral sheet music. I got a book off Whatnot to do this exact thing with. And I'm going to tear some strips. I'm not cutting anything. I don't even have any scissors in my hand, people. Okay, I'm going to rip some strips. I'm going to wad them up. I'm going to use some dark wax, and I'm just going to make it look like some aged little ripped up strips of paper. There we go. That's what I'm doing. And then now I'm laying it all out how I want it. So this is what I want it to look like. So I'm going to mark where I want those strips to be so I don't kind of lose track of it, because I don't want them to be too far under where that birdie's going to sit. I'm going to use this little fan brush that you can get from the DIY Struggle. Her website is thediystruggle.com. Now, this is, I put glue on the front side of the paper instead of the back side, which is okay because the front side's going to get Mod Podge as well. But we're going to put Mod Podge down, and then we're going to just decoupage this paper on. And I'm struggling here. Like, what am I doing? I feel left-handed all of a sudden. But just put a little bit of Mod Podge down, and then just a little bit on top. And I don't even care if there's wrinkles, because remember, I wadded it up. So we're just going to put it down now. Kind of getting my mojo now. Okay, there we go. And then all around the edges, I'm going to feather it out with this wonderful fan brush. And it's so good for decoupaging. I'm going to just feather that, what am I using? Mod Podge. Mod Podge. I'm going to feather it out so that you don't see any lines where it starts and stops. And this fan brush is perfect to do that with. So you're going to see me do that in just a little bit. See there? I'm fanning it. See it? See it? Right there. That's what I'm doing, because I don't want you to be able to tell that I did that. I'm tricking you. Okay, now I'm just going to rip the edges. I don't want it, I'm tearing it because I don't want to cut it or sand it, because I want it to be raw. Okay, here we go. Put a little extra Mod Podge all around the edges and make sure it's all nice and sealed so it doesn't come up. And then we're going to place our bird. Make sure I get my little blocks. I'm using some of those little tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree so that we can elevate that bird. We want some dimension. So don't ask me why I did this way. So I put one block on the back of the bird with some of that super glue, fix-all glue from Dollar Tree. The other one I used the Type Bond and some super glue and some hot glue. And I put it on the board. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. So then I just did the opposite to attach. There we go. I don't know. It was probably late at night, because I am late night creations, right? And I probably wasn't even thinking straight. But guess what? It got on there, and it looks great, and it's stuck like Chuck. There we go. Okay, next we're going to work on the little spindles. I just took this coarse grit sandpaper on my little finger sander, and I just went to town on these babies, and I just sanded and sanded and sanded away at that paint. This had been a Jenny Lynn changing table, and I disassembled it, and someone had painted it white. It had been wood stained, and this paint was on there pretty darn good. And so I managed to get all of it off that I wanted, because I wanted it to look, distressed. Then I've taken the sandy blonde paint, and I'm just giving it, like when you do a whitewash, but I'm doing a sandy blonde wash instead. So that just kind of looks dirty, like it's been outside. And that's what I want this project to look like, because, we've got the fence posts, we got the bird, we got the song paper that looks like, the music paper that looks like the birdie just brought it in, found it and brought it in to make a nest, but there's no nest. Oh boy. I'm going to clear wax these so that that paint stays on there, and this is what they turned out like. Now, these already have holes in the top and the bottom of them because they were nailed in. So perfect. I don't even have to drill holes in them. I'm just going to put those little eye hooks in. Each spindle is going to get an eye hook in the end of it. And then I'm going to measure, and I'm going to use my little punch tool, and I'm going to punch each mark where the spindles are going to be so that I can put the eye hooks in the bottom. I'm going to show you. I'm going to have to punch. I'm careful because I don't want to split that wood, because you remember how fragile it is? I'm going to call it fragile. Okay, so we're going to take the little eye hooks, and we're just going to screw all 4 of them in the bottom of this. It's pretty easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And then I just took those little tweezers because they were handy and used them to help me just screw that in there. Because they're so tiny, it's hard for me to get my big bulky fingers around there. Okay, I have these little Scrabble tiles, and I was able to spell out the word sing praise. I probably used all the vowels I had, and I felt a little bit like Vanna White, putting all my letters up there. Okay, so I'm going to glue them down with the Tite Bond and the hot glue. I'm not going to show you every letter. You're welcome. We need all the watch time we can get on this video. I don't need you fast forwarding, so I'm not going to make you watch me do all that. So, Tite Bond, hot glue, put them all down. I did not want them even. I wanted them to look like it was coming out of his mouth. Sing praise. And the words on the sheet music also said something about singing praise forever. So I thought that was fun. Okay, I have a little bit of some muslin cloth, and I'm just going to attach each one of these 4 little spindles to those hooks with this cloth, and I'm just going to knot it and leave the little excess hanging. So just pull. I'm going to use my little tweezers to help me because those little eye hooks are tiny. Now I have some canvas drop cloth, I have some muslin cloth, and I have a little bit of that ticking cloth. I looked for some little cloth with some tiny floral. That's really what I wanted, but I did not have any in my stash, and I do not need to buy any more fabric. So we're just going with what I had in my stash. I'm going to use some threads that actually came off of these fabrics when I was ripping them, and we're just going to tie it in the center. And then look what I got on Whatnot. I got this little wooden box full of buttons. And I got this for like $2. So I picked this particular big brown wooden button to go in the center, and I'm going to sew it. I got a big, huge needle. You could hot glue it if you want. Do not have to. But I thought this was going to be a cute look. It is a cute look. And I'm going to just sew it, and I'm going to leave the ends, the 2 ends, instead of, we usually have the ends behind and we hide them. Nope, not this time. We're going to leave them up on top, and I'm going to tie a tiny, tiny little bow and leave the tiny little bow on top of the button. And then we're just going to fluff and poke and pull. I did hot glue the bow down. Did not get that on camera. But here is how our little bird on the fence turned out. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end, my friends. Be sure that you hit that thumbs up to like this video. That really helps my channel a lot. Drop a comment and let me know you are here, even if it's just an emoji. I love it. You guys are doing so great about that. If you're not subscribed, look down there and make sure that you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you get notified every time I upload. Well, hopefully every time I upload. Sometimes YouTube gets a little cuckoo and they forget to notify you, but hopefully you'll get notified every time I upload new content, which is normally every Sunday, 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. But most of all, I want you to remember to be still and know that He is God.